Hello everyone and welcome to Training Tuesday for June 15th, 2021. We're going to start with some clever corn snakes and then move on to some other species. Our first corn snake is Naroon, and he didn't arrive with us until he was already 3 years old. He's 4 years old this year, and he shifted off of his shelf when he was cued to do that with the target, and now I'm cueing him to exit his enclosure. Now, he has never shifted onto this particular activity station before, so I reinforce him really early for coming over his enclosure threshold and orienting to the activity station. And then once he's taken his reinforcement, I go ahead and move him to the activity station. And that didn't bother him because he is used to me handling him, and he is used to being out of his enclosure periodically. That LaRouche is turning 1 year old this summer. He came from Silent Hill Reptiles, and he has shifted out of his enclosure before, but not into this particular shift tub. And he's very confident in the beginning, and he shifts mostly out of his enclosure and into the shift tub. But then I see some hesitation, and so I originally just cued him to shift, and I decide at this point to go ahead and try and lure him the remainder of the way into the shift tub. So now, instead of just delivering the reinforcement for orienting towards and moving towards the target, I'm using the reinforcement as a lure. That worked for him to a point. He mostly got into the shift tub and out of his enclosure, but he had the very tip of his tail left in his enclosure, and he just wasn't going to come out. Next up, we have Sundust, and she's turning 5 years old this year. She's the bright orange corn snake that you've seen in other videos. She and Naroon, which was the first corn snake you saw, both came from Joe Phelan at Port City Pet. And I've actually used targeting to recall Sundust when she has gotten out of her enclosure when she wasn't supposed to be. And it's worked very well. Sundust took to targeting really quickly, and she orients towards the target and follows it very well. She's just sometimes what I would call a little bit hyper as she does it. But I want her to shift completely out of her enclosure because I'm going to clean it, and this is the first time that I've actually ever asked her to shift into this particular shift tub. She does a great job, and here at the end I use the food reinforcer as a lure to shift her the rest of the way in. It works really well, and she's actually very calm as she follows the food lure into the tub and takes the reinforcer. So I was really proud of her because I was able to use targeting to completely shift her out of her enclosure and secure her in a holding bin so that I could do enclosure cleaning and maintenance, which was originally my primary reason for teaching targeting, although I've found so many other useful purposes for it since then. Now we're going to look at Beskar, and this is going to go very quickly. I have no idea how old she is. She came to me as an adult. It's taken her a little bit longer to learn and understand the targeting behavior, but I'm going to reinforce her here as soon as she orients towards the target. And then she always takes her reinforcement very quickly and disappears. This is Rathalon. He is 4 years old this year. He came from South Mountain Reptiles, and I didn't get him until he was around 2, so he started his training a little bit later. He targeted out of his hide, and he is slowly coming towards the target. I'm moving the target quite a bit, using it as a prompt for this particular snake. So the target can be used as a cue or signal. It can be used as a marker or bridge, and it can also be used as a prompt. And here I'm using it as a combination of a cue, and I am using it as a prompt by moving it. And that is to keep him moving towards the target because otherwise he will stop. He's oriented towards the target. He's moving towards it. And as soon as he tips his head over the enclosure threshold, I reinforce him because I am doing approximations to work him up to completely shifting out of his enclosure. It's just taking him a little bit longer than some of the others. Grogu is our male California Kingsnake who's turning a year old this year, and he has done well with targeting from the very beginning. I think I've documented every single target training session with him, and this is the first time that he's targeted out of his enclosure and partially onto the enclosure lid. He has a top opening enclosure, which I am not fond of, but he did a great job targeting out onto the lid for the first time, and there he went. And this is our other California Kingsnake, Vahari. She has a front opening enclosure, and I really like these better. It just gives you more options, but she is also targeting over her enclosure threshold and partially out for the very first time. So I was really proud of both of these Kingsnakes. Training Tuesday wouldn't be complete without seeing our False Water Cobra Vashti, and as you see here, I have the antecedent arrangement even different than it has been in the past. It seems I'm always having to change it based on her behavior during the previous session. So I have more barriers. I have a containment pin around her shift tub, but she did a great job shifting, and I don't know what more to say. She shifted into her shift tub. She didn't do anything too crazy. She didn't get away. I was able to safely contain her so that I could clean her enclosure, and job well done. Now I have saved the best for last, our brilliant Bredli. This is my absolute favorite species of snake. This is number 1, who is going to be turning 2 this fall, and look at how confident she is with this targeting behavior. She orients towards the target. She targets out of hiding. She pauses at the target, and then she looks elsewhere for her reinforcement. A+. This is a relatively new Bredli. Her name is Sabine. She's only had a couple of sessions, and she orients towards the target from left to right, and so she gets reinforced for that. It didn't take her very long for me to be able to unpair the target from the reinforcer. And then up next is Castiel, who's just completely brilliant. He not only is asking to come out of his enclosure, he's shifting out and using activity stands, and he's training and accepting food on the activity stations.